Okay, this is the SOH CAH TOA worksheet, and as you learned at some point in high school math, SOH CAH TOA is an acronym that is going to help you figure out these right triangle problems. SOH CAH TOA stands for sine. This is opposite hypotenuse, and I'll go over that in more. Actually, let me pull this out here. This is the formula sheet I will give you or have given you. And you won't have this on the test, so you need to memorize this acronym. And if you look on your formula sheet here, it says that sine of theta is the opposite over the hypotenuse, cosine is the adjacent over the hypotenuse, and tangent is the opposite over the adjacent. So that's what our acronym stands for. Just remember SOH CAH TOA, and if you have a problem like this on your test, write the acronym on the top of your test and then kind of look at it as you're working. That's what I recommend. And just to give you some context here, we are dealing with right triangles. Right triangles, they have a lot of special properties, and one of them is that you can use these trigonometric ratios to find one side if you have another side, basically. And I'll show you what I mean kind of through example here, but this is really important. Try to commit this to memory as soon as you can and start using it. So number one says find, we're trying to find the tangent of z. So let me draw here. So here's our triangle they gave us. Angle Z is over here. And I'm only going to put a couple signs on here. I'm going to put this one. I'm going to put this one. So we have SOH CAH TOA. So which part of our acronym are we using? We're using the last part, the tangent part, because they asked for the tangent. So that part says TOA. So what it stands for is the tangent of theta is equal to the opposite over the adjacent. That's what the O and the A stand for. So what that means is that the tangent of Z in this case, which is our angle, is equal to our opposite side. Our opposite side, the side across, is 21 over the adjacent, which is our side that's next to our angle. That's not the hypotenuse. Remember, it can't be the hypotenuse. The adjacent cannot be the hypotenuse. Over 28. You can use your calculator to simplify that, but this is the same thing as, let's see, we divide them both by 7, it should be 3/4. Okay, so number one is 3/4. Alrighty, so number two, they're asking us to find the cosine of C. I know this is kind of small here, I'll draw it a little bit bigger. I'll try to fit a good number of problems onto these worksheets so you get as much practice as you need. So on this one, let's see, I'm going to put this number on here, and I'll copy this number down. We're trying to find the cosine of C. Remember that cosine, I want to remember SOH CAH, CAH is C-A-H, so that stands for the adjacent over the hypotenuse. So the cosine of C must be 16, which is our adjacent, over hypotenuse, which is 34. And this, I think, simplifies to, you can use your calculator, but it should be 8/17, I think. And that's the right answer. So 8/17 is the cosine of C. Okay, next we're going to find x in this triangle. This one's a little bit tougher, but it's certainly doable. You can all handle this. So our first job is to figure out which of our three ratios are we going to use. So if I look at my angle here, I see that I have the opposite and I have the hypotenuse, because this is opposite our angle, and I have the hypotenuse. So which one of our three ratios uses opposite and hypotenuse? Is it sine, cosine, or tangent? So opposite hypotenuse must be sine, so I'll say the sine of 60 equals my opposite side, which is x, over my hypotenuse, which is 17. Now I'd like to solve for x, so I'll multiply both sides by 17. These cancel. I get x equals 17 sine 60. Remember, the sign of a number is just another number, and I can compute that on my calculator. So I'll say 17 times the sine of 60, enter. Okay, I get this nice rationalized answer. I think I want it as a decimal though, really. So I would get 14.72. I just hit my button here to switch between rational and decimal form. Here it says 14.6. That's close enough, but I'm a little curious as to why it wasn't exactly the same. That's close enough for now. Let me show you one thing really fast. You want to make sure your calculator is in degree mode because we're using 60 degrees. There's another way to express angles, and it's called radians. We're not going to be using that as much, and I don't want you to really worry about it. But you want to make sure you're in degree mode. So see the mode button right here? I'll press mode and see how it says degree, D-E-G. I want to stay on that mode. So great, we're in degree mode. Okay, so number 4, same kind of problem. We have a right triangle, and first I want to figure out which trigonometric ratio should I use? Sine, cosine, or tangent? So I see my angle here, and which two sides do I have? I see that I have the hypotenuse, and I have the adjacent. That would be the opposite, so I have the adjacent, it's x. So I'll write down, let's see, hypotenuse and adjacent is cosine, because it's CAH, so CAH TOA, so that's adjacent and hypotenuse. So I'll write down the cosine of 27 is equal to adjacent over hypotenuse. So x must equal, I'll multiply both sides by 20. Multiply both sides by 20. Those cancel, so I get 20 cosine 27. Okay, we can handle that. 20 times cosine 27. All right, 17.82. I'll just say 17.8. Hopefully that's our right answer. There it is, great. So we get 17.8. So that's how we handle that problem. So now you're warmed up. Let's look at some real high school graduation test problems, which are word problems here. Number 5 says, a kite is flying 70 feet above the ground and is attached to a string tied to a stake on the ground. If the angle of elevation is just a fancy word for if you're kind of facing forward on the earth and you look up, that's an angle of elevation. So this is an angle of elevation. The opposite is an angle of depression, but this is an angle of elevation. So it's 40 degrees. Find the length of the string to the nearest foot. So which side of our triangle is going to be our length of string? It should be this one, right? Because it goes from here to our kite. So that's what we're looking for. So which two sides do we have? It looks like I have the opposite and the hypotenuse. So which ratio do we use? We use sine, because sine of theta is the opposite over the hypotenuse. So I'll say sine 40 equals 70, which is my opposite, over my hypotenuse. So this solving is a little bit tougher, actually. I'm going to multiply both sides by x, which is a little bit harder than normal. X is going to cancel here, and I'll have x times sine 40. Remember, sine 40 is just a number. So now to get x alone, I have to divide both sides by sine 40, because division is the opposite of multiplication, and I need to get x all by itself. So those cancel, and I get x equals 70 over sine 40. So let's put that into the calculator. 70 divided by the sine of 40 is 108.9. So that's very close to 109, so that must be the right answer. Okay, review that algebra carefully. This solving is pretty tough. So rewind the video if you're confused. Check that out again step by step. Try to recreate it yourself, right? Stop the video, try to do that problem again. See if you can handle it. If not, come back, see where you got lost. After you can do it by yourself, that's when you should feel good. Okay, the angle of elevation from a point 25 from the base of a tree on level ground. There's kind of a lot going on here. Let me make a little picture. So my tree, I'll just draw a line. Let's say this is my tree here. Here's the ground maybe. Okay, a simple little drawing. So the angle of elevation from a point 25 feet from the base of a tree. So here's my base. Let's say this is 25 feet away. And my angle of elevation is going to look like that. It's like you're looking up at the tree. So it says in our problem the angle is 30 degrees. And it says which equation can be used to find the height of the tree. So this is our tree here, and the height is going to be h. All right, so we have 25, h, and 30. And the question first is, which trigonometric ratio should we use? Should we use sine, cosine, or tangent? And so to figure that out, I needed to think, which two sides do I have? So right now I have the opposite, and I have the adjacent. So which one is that? That corresponds to TOA, T-O-A, so tangent is opposite over adjacent. So what I'll say here is the tangent of 30 equals h over 25, opposite over adjacent. So there we go. To find h, I'll multiply both sides by 25, and I'll get h equals, these cancel, 25 times the tangent. Ooh, I'm doing too much work here, actually, right? So, hold on. They made our life a little bit easier. All we have to do is match which one of these answers matches the problem. That's why you should look at the answers first. Don't make the mistake I did. Look at your answers first. So which one of these answers matches what I have? It's answer choice E. So that must be our right answer. Okay, 2 to go. Number 7 says, Ryan, whose eyes are 4 feet off the ground, here's Ryan, is standing 18 feet away from a large inflatable clown at an amusement park. He is looking up at the clown at a 40-degree angle. How tall is the inflatable clown? Round your answer to the nearest hundredth. Okay, so we see our triangle here. We're trying to find the height of our clown. So part of the height is from here to here, which is part of our triangle. So we have to find that. But that isn't the whole story. We also need to add this section here. And this section actually is just the same height as our friend Ryan over here. So this is 4 feet. And the leftover, the remainder, is the height we're going to find from our triangle. And if we add those together, we'll get our whole height. So just make a note of that, store it away in your brain for a second. So let's think about our triangle here. It has a base of 18 feet. It has an angle of 40 degrees. And we want to find the height. I'll call that x. So we have two sides, opposite and adjacent. So I'm going to use tangent for opposite and adjacent, TOA, tangent. So the tangent of 40 is equal to x over 18. I want to get it x by itself, so I'll multiply both sides by 18. These cancel, and I have x equals 18 tan 40. So I'll calculator time. 18 tan 40 is 15.1. And remember what we said, we're not done, we have to add 4 to our answer, because this is 15.1. And to get my whole answer, I need to add 4 to get the whole height, which should be around 19.1. So let's look at our answers, and there we go. B says 19.10 feet. Great. Okay, last problem. A student drew this diagram of a right triangle. Okay, there's our diagram. What is the value of the tangent of R? So here's angle R. Remember, tangent, tan theta, get into this, is equal to the opposite over the adjacent. So as I said, when you take your test, at the top I want you to write SOH CAH TOA, SOH CAH TOA. And remember that it stands for sine is equal to the opposite over the hypotenuse. Cosine is adjacent over hypotenuse, and tangent is opposite over adjacent. And I see here that I know about the opposite and the, ooh, I made a mistake. Yes, so I picked the wrong one. That's why I wrote this up here. I'm glad I did that. So this is not the adjacent. This is the adjacent because this is the hypotenuse. Okay, hypotenuse is always the hypotenuse. This is the hypotenuse. So what should I be using then? Not tangent. I have the opposite in the hypotenuse, so I should be using sine. So the sine of R, sine R, is equal to opposite over hypotenuse, which is 8 over 10, which is 4 over 5. So the answer must be A. Okay, great.